Okay, 大家好, hi guys, it's today and welcome back to my channel. And today we are back for continuing our reading of ErHa Volume 7. I'm so sorry for the delay in coming back. I originally only planned to be away for like a week, and then I got ill the week before that, and then the week after everything just kind of went a little bit crazy. But we're back, and hopefully we're gonna stay here for a little while, in the sense of we're gonna be finishing off ErHa, and then basically I have kind of realized originally I had my streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I wanted to move it to Wednesdays, just to make life a little bit easier for myself, and I realized that's not helping. So once I'm done with Justice in the Dark, we will be moving the streams to Mondays. I'm sorry that I keep jumping around with when things are, like when these streams are happening. I'm really trying to adjust my schedule, but it's a little bit more difficult than I anticipated. Anyway, hi. And before we do get into today's stream, I quickly want to give a shout out to Brittany from Gaywatch. She had her channel randomly terminated earlier, like tonight for me. Like it's been 2 or 3 hours, I think. And she sounds optimistic that things are fine, you know, she's gonna have it sorted out. But just in, heads up for anyone who also follows her, because like I love Brittany, she's amazing. I thought I'd just let everyone know. Let me quickly drop her Patreon, because then, if you're wondering what's going on, you can go and follow her Patreon. She posted an update on there, and I think she, like, anything that she needs to communicate to people, she's probably going to be doing on there for now. But it does sound like she's hopeful that everything will turn out fine and that her channel will be restored. Obviously with YouTube, you just never really know how long it's going to take. But yeah, so send her all the love if you have the time and the inclination. She really deserves it. And yeah, I think that's it. My voice sounds like it's already going and we haven't even started. Hi. I think we can more or less just get going. I have been doing rereads of ErHa, and I am fine, thank you. Thank you for asking. I've been doing rereads of the volumes of ErHa that I have already read on stream, and it is like giving me a lot of new thoughts and perspectives. I'm currently at the point where I almost said weighing. Moran is going to get Wan Ning's soul from the underworld, and now it's something of, oh, he has one slightly damaged soul and the other one should be fine, but by the by that might mean that it's not his soul. And I'm like, does that mean that he like attached to Moran in the previous life? I have so many thoughts and I just don't know what to make of them. Obviously also no spoilers, but yeah, I can't stay because I have not read ErHa yet. Oh, but I surely watch these videos once I do read it. I just want to say hi and thank you for dropping by. And if you can stomach Captive Prince, I promise you'll be fine. Well, maybe I shouldn't promise, but I think you'd be fine with ErHa, and you'd probably enjoy ErHa as well, so would highly recommend. And also, plus the covers are just beautiful. Always a bonus. Okay, we were in the middle of pain. So for anyone who wants to follow along with the physical copies, we were on page 131, chapter 222. Panicked Tumult. Also bear with me please, because I feel a little bit rusty when it comes to the reading. Okay. It was a long, stunned moment before Shumeng snapped back to his senses. You bastard, who are you calling dumb? He shouted at Mehanshir's back. Xu Zhengyong tugged him back. Mingar, that guy just called me dumb. Enough, you misheard. Hanshir didn't say anything. He whispered in my ear. As much as I love Shumeng, to be fair, he always calls, or always called Moran a dumb mutt, so it's maybe a little bit good that he gets a taste of his own medicine. Away from the hubbub, Jiang Xi was assessing the state of the wounded. He finished his inspection and ordered all the cultivators to stay put for a while and meditate or seek medical attention according to their needs. This outcome was unavoidable. They'd sent out many of their strongest fighters. The arrowheads had been blunted before the bow was even drawn. Oof. To rashly continue would spell catastrophe if they were to meet with danger again. After laying down his instructions, Jiang Xi approached Nangong Si. Nangong, I have a question for you. Jiang Jiangmeng, please go ahead. Jiang Xi glanced at Ye Wangxi, standing beside him. Whatever you want to say, it's fine if she hears, Nangong Si said. It's best if she doesn't, replied Jiang Xi. His gaze went pointedly to Nangong Si's chest, where his spiritual core lay, or didn't lie. After Ye Wangxi retreated, Jiang Xi sat down beside Nangong Si. What are you gonna do about your call? Keep lying? Nangong Si's eyes dulled. I haven't figured out how to tell her yet. You think she'd scorn you? You're overthinking. Miss Ye isn't the type to... No, said Nang Si, cutting Jiang Xi off. I'm not afraid she'll scorn me. I just don't want her to worry. Jiang Xi fell silent, as if jabbed by unfathomable arrogance in Nangong Si's bones. He chuckled. You certainly have faith in yourself. Jiang Jiangmen is mistaken. My faith isn't in myself. My faith is in her. If we think about how he spoke to and about her when, we're first introduced to their dynamic, you've been taken down quite a few notches lately, Jiang Xi said idly. Aren't you afraid I'll make trouble for you if you don't watch your words? You wouldn't. Jiang Xi paused. Do you have faith in me too? I've gotten a good grasp on Jiang Jiangmen's character on this journey, said Nangong Si. That's why I said what I did when I thought I was about to die. Jiang Xi had met Nangong Si's eyes as he spoke, but when Nangong Si mentioned that moment, he glanced away. It seems you've survived. Do those words still hold true? They do, Nangong Si replied. Once we've defeated Xu Shuangling, I'll tell everyone. Jiang Xi was quiet for a long interval before he spoke again. Nangong Si, it's a shame I won't see Wu Fengsek flourish under your leadership. You would have been a worthy opponent. You would have. He's great. Sect leader, you were mistaken again. Nangong Si's calm tone proclaimed his unshakable pride. I was already fortunate enough to learn the best of what Wu Fengsek has to offer. It was rare indeed for Jiang Xi to refrain from a pithy retort or a scathing remark. It was rarer still for him to be impressed or agree with what someone else had said. This time, he paused for a long while before responding. Enough of this, he said at length. I have a more important question for you. I know what the sect leader wants to ask. Nangong Si stroked Nao Baijin, curled up inside his quiver. There was a cut still trickling blood on the Fey Wolf's forehead. Protect the poor Fey Wolf. But I don't know how Mount Zhao could break free of the sect founder's will either. I thought it was impossible. You have no idea at all? Jiang Xi asked. Think a little harder. Are there no secret histories pertaining to this mountain? Nangong Si shook his head. None. For generations, the Nangong clan has simply known that Mount Zhao obeys its descendants, but no more so than Nangong Changying. There is no one else who can override his orders. What is he getting at? No one. The first master the Zhao dragon accepted was the sect founder. Nothing can change this. Jiangxi's expression flickered as he sank deeper into a rigid, brooding solemnity. Then, how did Xu Shuanglin do it? I don't know either. Nanggongse paused. Jiangxi thought he had more to say and turned to look at him, only to find the young man staring fixedly into the distance. Jiangxi followed his line of sight and found Nanggong Liu peeling a tangerine. The blast of tangerines is going to give me a nightmare, I swear. Nanggongse had been trying the whole time to avoid looking at his father, what was that? Father, who'd been reduced to a pawn. But as he gazed upon him now, his face twisted with pain. In truth, Jiangxi was of the same generation as Xu Shuanglin and Shengyong. Their cultivation methods were different, so he still appeared fresh-faced and handsome, but not so his mental state. His mind had long since lost its youthfulness. When he looked at Nanggongse, he felt a rare compassion rise within him. Stop looking, he said. Don't look anymore. It seemed to take the last of Nanggongse's remaining energy to tear his eyes away from his father. When he lowered his gaze, his shoulders shook. He buried his face in his palms, but was unable to hide the sound of his sobs. He hoarsely murmured, as if trying to change the subject. I don't know how Xu Shuanglin did it either. The demon dragon was tamed by the sect founder himself. But his shoulders only shook more violently. Jiangxi had remained stiff all this time, his face very still. But now he reached out to pat Nanggongse's shoulder. He seemed to want to comfort Nanggongse, but he'd never comforted anyone in his life. He said clumsily, do we have like a Chuaning, family member here? It feels like they are of the same level of social awkwardness. There now. Everyone has their own fate. Despite how things ended, you were once father and son. Look at me, reaching middle age with no children at all. It could be worse. Nanggongse gave that statement all the due consideration it deserved, which was none at all. Even Jiangxi himself thought his words too dry, worse than not speaking. He rose with some embarrassment. I'll go look around the temple, rest here for a while. We'll head off soon enough. Nanggongse didn't look up. One more thing. What's up ahead? The Dragon Soul Pond, Nanggongse replied in a muffled voice. That sounds like it could be dangerous, or wielded by someone with malicious intent. It could be dangerous. Let's hope not. What is it? It's the blood pool where we offer sacrifices to the demon dragon. The dragon's primordial spirit sleeps within it, and the people of Rufeng sect need to offer its sacrifices every year. Jiangxi frowned. Hopefully there's nothing else waiting for us there. Now there's definitely going to be something else. The group rested for the better part of an hour. The wounded and exhausted gradually recovered under the care of the healers. Jiangxi turned to Xu Shuanglin's dioramas, good and evil depicted in extremes. His frown deepened. What was Xu Shuanglin doing with these puppets that couldn't fight at all? Were they just decor? Given how the poor Nanggong Liu had said His Majesty with every other breath, it seemed Xu Shuanglin had crowned himself king and turned these Zhenlong chess puppets, splitting between dark and light, into his subjects. Jiangxi walked down the aisle, studying them, before finally making his way to Nanggong Liu. The man was sitting on his basket, slowly peeling a tangerine. Jiangxi hesitated, then bent down and asked the same question they'd asked before. Can you take me to His Majesty? Nanggong Liu gave the same answer. His Majesty is busy. I can't take you to him just because you asked. Unless, Jiangshi flicked his sleeves in displeasure, a wastrel to the end, a wastrel in life, and as a oh, not unless, useless. Jiangshi flicked his sleeves in displeasure, a wastrel to the end, a wastrel in life, and as a pawn. Nanggong Liu cowered before Jiangshi's vitriol. He clutched at his tangerine basket and then burst into frightened tears. Why are you so mean? I am useless. I've always been a wastrel. What's the point of being cruel to me? What did this man do to Nanggong Liu's personality? That's the weirdest thing to me. Is this what he wished Nanggong Liu was like, or what he feels is the most humiliating for Nanggong Liu to be like under his control? Very weird. His loud bawling drew the attention of those around them. Chuaning, nearing the end of his meditation, frowned. There's something very strange about Nanggong Liu. How so? Moran asked. I can't say, Chuaning replied. It does seem to be him, but there's something odd about the way he's acting. He's not like the Nanggong Liu I knew. Yeah, he's acting like he maybe might have acted as a child. Moran looked over. Jiangshi was glaring at Nanggong Liu, his face ashen, while Nanggong Liu whimpered, rubbing his eyes in abject distress. As he observed Nanggong Liu's movements, Moran felt there was indeed something unnerving about them, an indescribable wrongness, as if he were watching a child in the body of a middle-aged man. Goosebumps rose over his skin. Frozen, Moran murmured. A child. What? Moran looked around. Shizun, don't you think he's acting very much like a child? He peered back at Nanggong Liu and saw he was using his sleeve to mop up the snot on his face. I'd say 6 years old at best. Chuaning looked at Nanggong Liu again and found Moran was right. Although Nanggong Liu still appeared to be in his 40s, his mannerisms were artless and childlike. Did Xishuanglin do something to him? Chuaning murmured. Somehow revert his mind and memories to those of his 6-year-old self. That's not good. Because my immediate thought is, what if Xishuanglin can somehow manipulate memories to the extent where he can bring back Ta Xianjun in Moran? At least in terms of viciousness. Oh no. I hope that's not the case. Did Xishuanglin do something to him? Chuaning murmured, somehow reverts his mind and memories to those of his 6-year-old self. Shizun, wait here, Moran said. I want to try something. What are you planning? Moran didn't respond. As everyone watched, he walked over to Nanggong Liu and picked up one of the tangerines. Don't cry, he said, handing it to him. Have a tangerine. I won't. I've already had one. The rest are for His Majesty. Moran put the little fruit back in the basket. Who's His Majesty? What use is this? Jiangshi huffed. I already asked him that question, didn't I? Nanggong Liu gave the same rote answer. His Majesty is His Majesty. Who else could he be? But Moran didn't give up. He asked another question. Okay, His Majesty is His Majesty. You're so loyal and clever. I'm sure His Majesty would be happy if he knew. That's right. I've been asking questions about His Majesty this entire time. I haven't asked about you. What's your name, little one? Huang Xiaoyu had grown tired of this. He scoffed and made as if to speak, but Jiangshi held up a warning hand, shaking his head. He had also sensed something peculiar about Nanggong Liu. Arms wrapped around his basket of tangerines, Nanggong Liu looked at Moran for a while before timidly answering, "I'm Nanggong Liu." Moran grinned and patted Nanggong Liu's head. "Nice to meet you." Still smiling, he said, "I'm Moran. I'm 22 years old. What about you? I'm 5. Silence fell over the hall. Though Nangong Liu hadn't spoken loudly, many around them had been watching quietly. These shaking words seemed to land like a thunderclap. Nearly everyone was flabbergasted. If not for the urgency of the situation, no fear would have burst out laughing until tears of mirth streamed down their faces. 5? 5? If 3 years ago someone had told them the leader of the greatest sect in the world would curl up beside a basket of tangerines and mumble, "I'm 5, they would have sooner believed a sow could climb trees. But Nangong Liu had said just this, leaving everyone aghast, exchanging glances in complete confusion. Jiang Shi stepped forward and asked sternly, "What do you do here every day?" Nangong Liu ducked behind Moran, cowering and tugging on Moran's sleeve. "Da Ge, I don't want to talk to him. This uncle is so mean." Jiang Shi blinked. Nangong Liu was older than he was. For Nangong Liu to call him uncle was off-puttingly weird. I shouldn't be finding this so funny, but it's just, this is so absurd, but so great. And so terrifying at the same time. Moran also found the situation increasingly absurd. It would have been one thing if this was truly a 5-year-old child, but the hand tugging his sleeve now belonged to a man with crow's feet. Mouth twitching, Moran cleared his throat and consoled Nangong Liu. Okay, you don't have to talk to him. You can talk to me instead. What do you do here?" Jiang Shi's eyes widened. He really had to give it to Moran. "Good going, young man. How do you keep a straight face at this?" "I pick tangerines every day. I pick them and wash them, then bring them to His Majesty and wait for him to come out and eat them." Nangong Liu babbled. "Tangerines are His Majesty's favorites. He can eat a whole basketful. The trees at the foot of the mountain used to only have flowers, but His Majesty said they were boring, so he stopped them for tangerine trees. I also think tangerines are better. They're so sweet." At this point, his eyes darkened. "But His Majesty hasn't been feeling good recently. Even when I pick him a whole basket, he can only eat half." Jiang Shi latched onto the important question. "His Majesty isn't feeling well." But even the 5-year-old Nangong Liu was good at holding grudges. Pursing his lips, he puffed out his cheeks and said, "Go away. I don't want to talk to you." Jiang Shi managed to keep a straight face for the barest moment before he whipped around and covered his mouth with a handkerchief. "Jiang Zhengmen, are you quite all right?" Huang Xiaoye asked sweetly. "Don't talk to me." Jiang Shi wrinkled his nose in disgust, refusing to look at the pouncing Nangong Liu. "It's too gross." "What do you mean? His Majesty isn't feeling well?" Moran persisted. He coughs a lot, and blood keeps coming out. He's also very skinny, but he won't eat. A lot of his body has started rotting." Oh, that's interesting. Because that very much implies that he isn't up to the backlash that the Zhenlong chest formation actually takes on the body. Moran was fine because he kind of like worked his way up to it, but I feel like Xu Shuanglin has been pushing his body beyond its capabilities and it's catching up to him very quickly. I mean, that would make sense to me. That's not necessarily the case though. I realize I missed this comment. Shimeng is comic relief of the series. Yeah, he is, which concerns me because oftentimes, as I have recently been reminded, the comic relief is the first to die, but let's not think about that. As Nangong Liu spoke, tears began to roll down his cheeks like beads off a broken string. He was soon bawling again. "I'm so worried about him. What will I do if he goes away? No one will play with me or talk to me or feed me tangerines again. He feeds you tangerines? Back at Rufung's sect, the grudges between these two brothers had seemed to run deeper than bloody seas of hate. It was miracle enough Shuanglin wasn't still torturing his brother with the lychee fruit. Feeding him tangerines, unimaginable. Yeah, and I can't help thinking back to the girl from Butterfly Town's encounter with Shuanglin and that tangerine debacle, because I'm like, is this just the guy being very, very peculiar, or is there some kind of decades-long spell that he's about to invoke via tangerines, as ridiculous as that sounds? His body has started rotting. Jiang Shi murmured to himself. Sounds like backlash from the Zhenlong chess formation, Xu Zhengyong offered. This was an effect of which Moran was only too aware. If the caster of the Zhenlong chess formation lacked the required spiritual energy, or if they tried to possess too many chess pieces at once, their body would undergo necrosis. When he had first used the forbidden technique in his past life, his flesh too had begun to rot away. Specifically his toe. Ooh! Hey. Yeah, okay. Moran had feared Chuaning finding out, so he'd immediately stopped practicing Zhenlong chess and only continued after developing the shared heart array. In time to come, he became Emperor Taxianjun, possessed of enough spiritual energy to control thousands of pawns even without using the array, but that necrotic toe on his left foot never recovered. Moran found it deeply strange. The revenants outside were being puppeteered by the shared heart array, but the bodies here in the temple, allowed to do as they liked, were solely supported by Shishonglin's spiritual energy, without aid of the soul-eater insects. He clearly couldn't handle so many chess pieces. Why would he do something so counterproductive? Maybe a sense of grandiosity? That feels weak, but I could maybe see it. The thing that I still wonder about is why, out of everyone, he would be reborn. And also, I have recently been reminded, because of the reread, that the only person we know of who has a water element is Shimei, which goes back to the theory that Shimei is somehow behind all this. But if Shimei, or if there's another player behind this, let's take Shimei out of the equation for a moment, though still fear that being a possibility. If there's another person behind this, maybe it wasn't Shishuanglin who retained his memories of past life. Maybe he's being enabled and just being told about what would happen to him if he didn't act. But I guess at the same time, maybe he was one of the first people to die under Taxianjun's reign, so he doesn't know enough to keep himself safe. He just knows, enough to rack a lot of disasters. It feels like there's a missing piece here, with regards to why he is doing it the way he's doing it. There was no use speculating. Let's go, Jiang Shi said. The doors to the Dragon Soul Pool opened via another mechanism, but this one was intact. The instant it was activated, the doors embedded within the septiminal star array rumbled to life, retracting into the walls. Before their watchful eyes, Rufeng Sect's ancestral temple slowly revealed itself. The doors opened on a hexagonal chamber, its walls cold and wet. At the highest points of its ceiling was a crude dragon carved in relief, claws bared in fury. An oil lamp dangled from its mouth, filled with a fuel that burned cool blue. A pool of foam-flecked blood occupied the center of the chamber, bubbling and steaming in the air. Joy. The dragon's soul pool, said Nangongse. The demon dragon's primordial spirit is sealed within. One of the cultivators stepped forward to take a closer look, but Nangongse held out a warning hand. Don't look too long. The malevolent energy around this pool is strong enough to dissolve the minds of those who gaze into it. Let's go. That's intense, damn. We'll never be able to buy tangerines again after the series. Oh hell no, no one's taking tangerines from my hands. I will just unfortunately have to deal with frickin' Shizun flashbacks every single time I do it. There was something else that was bothering me, but I can't remember what it was, so let's just move on. Led by Nangongse, they skirted around the pool and filed into the corridor behind it. The passage was dark and devoid of any markers, but Moran could tell they were heading uphill. They walked for half an hour before Nangongse stopped. A narrow door lay in front of them, bedecked lavishly with jewels. The exit is a little past this door. Past that is the final section of the temple, the soul-summoning platform. Shizun is probably there. This is the entirety of Wufeng Sect's ancestral temple? Wang Xiaoye piped up from the crowd. The front hall, the dragon soul pool, and the soul summoning platform? Yes. There aren't any secret chambers? In his haste, he'd nearly said treasure chambers out loud. Fortunately, he'd managed to stop himself in time. I mean, Shizun might be hiding in a secret chamber. Nangongse gave him a long, considering look until Wang Xiaoye began to fidget under his gaze. Finally, Nangongse said, "Let's go to the soul-summoning platform first and see." The fresh blood of a Nangong descendant was once again required to open this door. Nangongse smeared the blood over the stone dragon's eye, and after a series of clicks, they heard a distant sigh. "Who's there?" Wang Xiaoye exclaimed. He turned to Nangongse. "You little brat, you better not have played a trick on us, leading us all into a trap." Can I smack this man? How many times does Nangongse basically have to die for you to stop suspecting him of every single bit of treachery that you can possibly imagine? Sorry. I have to remind myself why they feel they are justified in being horrible to Nangongse, but it's a very arduous task. If Huang Daozhang has doubts, Nangongse said, voice flat, it's not too late to go back and wait in the hall. Wang Xiaoye would of course do no such thing, but he did make sure to take a bit of insurance. He'd noticed all the important doors had required a Nangong's blood to open, and guessed that legendary treasure chambers must be the same. On his way past the door, Wang Xiaoye placed his hand in his... how do I pronounce this? Innocently? That's not how you pronounce it, but anyway. Basically innocently, I would infer from the swelling, on the dragon's eye and took some of Nangongse's fresh blood. A desolate voice filled the pitch-black tunnel. "Who comes?" Caught red-handed, Huang Xiaoye nearly jumped a foot in the air. Everyone else looked around. It is Nangongse, 7th generation descendant of Wufeng Sect. Nangongse said, "Wang Li welcomes, Master." The voice faded away. "Wang Li is the dragon's name," Nangongse explained. "Jiang Zhengmen, if you please." Jiang Shi peered into the tunnel. He could see a white light glimmering in the distance, presumably the soul-summoning platform. The earth shook again, and the hollow voice rang out once more. Wang Li welcomes, Master. Is there something wrong with the dragon? Jiang Shi frowned. Why did it say the same thing twice? But the color had already drained from Nangong's face. He looked in the direction of the soul-summoning platform. Shadows flickered in the distance. Before he could get a good look, he heard the hissing of countless tongues, followed by a dark mass like a surging tide pouring towards them from where the light shone. Pupils shrinking, Nangongse shouted, "Run!" Great. Great! Can they stop having to run for their lives for like just 2 seconds? I know we have technically had 2 seconds, but it doesn't feel like it. Okay. Oops, sorry, my bad. Let's see if we can get through another chapter before the end of the first hour. Chapter 223. Carefree Wandering Reprise. That sounds too good to be true, but sure. What surging tide? The mass that poured towards them was a deluge of venomous snakes. Chaos erupted in the narrow tunnel as the crowd turned and ran, trampling several cultivates to death in the crush. Jiang Shi pushed what the hell did I just say? Pushed Nangongse ahead. Sorry, my bad. You go first. I'll deal with things here. He turned and scattered glimmering powder from his sleeves. The moment the snakes smelled the powder, they stopped and curled up in fear. Everyone, calm down, Jiang Shi shouted. Retreat to the great hall. Don't push. When he had stopped the tide of snakes, he hastily caught up to the rest of the stone doors, where Nangongse was studying the dragon carving. What is it? The demon dragon must have been possessed, Nangongse said. I want to check on the dragon soul pond. Yeah, like I was wondering if there was something that Shishuanglin could have done to the dragon soul pond that would have affected the control of the mountain. So maybe? What are we going to do about all those snakes? I didn't bring that much repelling powder. They'll come rushing back as soon as it wears off. I'll take care of it, Yuangshi said. She'd been trained in Rufengsek's Shadow City since she was small and was more suited for fighting in dark and cramped spaces than anyone else. Even if Nangongse was reluctant to leave her behind, Yuangshi's determination was written clear on her face. They had no better choices. Nangongse laid a hand on her shoulder. It's too dark here. I know you don't like it. I'll come back as soon as I can. The amount of trust that Nangongse is displaying in this moment, because like you have to really trust someone to be able to leave them behind like that. Jiang Shi and Nangongse were last to leave the tunnel. As soon as they emerged, Huang Xiaoye pounced with a ferocity beyond anything a white-haired old geezer should possess. Nangongse, don't you dare say you don't have a hand in this. Can we just trip this man? Like, just find something that resembles a Lego and put it under his foot. Nangongse had reached the end of his patience. If I were controlling this, he shouted, would you still be standing here safe and sound? Get out of my way. Huang Xiaoye blinked in shock, then pointed a finger in Nangongse's face. Look here, the mask is finally off, showing your true colors at last. Then what are you showing, sir? Acting the saint all along, but now that we're in your territory, you raise your voice at your elders. You still think you're the little prince of Rufengsect. How dare you look down on the rest of us? Xiaoye. Someone else had had enough. Jiang Shi did not suffer idiots. His next words were clipped to sharpness, snapped out like whip cracks. Do you think I don't know precisely what you're trying to do? That accusing finger darted back into Hang Xiaoye's sleeve, his face pale, but he maintained his composure. I'm but an old man seeking to avenge his brother. Perhaps Jiang Men can't empathize with... Of course, I can't empathize with Huang Daozhang. Jiang Shi fixed him with a cold stare, his eyes like two sharp blades unsheathed. After all, I haven't the slightest interest in Ru Fengsek's treasures. Xiaoyu stumbled a few steps back, staring dumbly as he gaped like a beached fish, incapable of forming speech. Nangong, go on ahead, Jiang Shi said, but the Dragon Soul Pond was right there. It was clear with one glance that there was nothing unusual about it. He paced around it several times, but found no evidence of tampering. Nangong shook his head. I'll go take a look in the front hall. The layout of the hall was more complex, and all the Zhenglong pawns was still within. Nangong Liu, too, had been left in the hall. When Nangong entered, he found him fast asleep, clutching his baskets of tangerines. He stood before his father for a while, eyes vacant and red around the rims. He didn't dare stay too long, nor wake his dad, who'd been reduced to a pawn. He only looked at each face in turn, hoping to find some clue. He hadn't examined things so closely when everyone else had been here earlier. He only knew the hall had been separated into two halves, paradise and purgatory. As he studied each puppet, he saw many familiar faces. The fourth uncle, who never liked Shishuanglin, had fallen into purgatory and was roasting over the flames, while the handmaidens who'd served in his courtyard, farewell to the 3 lifetimes, were chasing butterflies in paradise. He even glimpsed his own grandfather among the crowd. But Nangong Se had no time to grieve. He'd suddenly sensed he was about to see a certain someone. Someone who... He heard it. Oh, please tell me it's not Song Chitong. Through the whispering tide, he heard it, a soft and shaking murmur. Sa'ar. Or his mom? I don't think we've met his mom, have we? Nangong Se's head snapped around as if struck by lightning. Tears welled in his eyes. In the hazy fog, he saw a faint silhouette garbed in teal. He staggered towards it, shouting hoarsely, Mom? Mom? His falling tears seemed to clear his vision. On the side of paradise stood Nangong Se's mother, Rongyan. Like Nangong Changyin, this woman's willpower was unbending, and Shishuanglin had left the minds of the pawns in the hall intact. Her destroyed body still recognized her son as soon as he entered her field of vision, though Nangong Se was very different from the boy she'd last seen him as. Shaking, she reached one stiffening hand out towards her son. Sa'ar. Rongyan was wearing the clothes Nangong Se had last seen her in. He knelt before her, returning to that bygone year in an instant, to that unremarkable night at Ru Fengsek. Mother had gone to her son's study in search of him, and the full moon had watched through the window. Nangong Se knelt before her, looking up at her face. His chest was bursting with words he wanted to say, but what left his mouth were a few trembling syllables. Mom. If the whole world praised him, he rejoiced not. If the whole world blamed him, he despaired not. Time flowed backwards. The stern mother of the past stood by the window, slender brows drawn together. What comes before, if the whole world blames him, he despaired not. The child stammered, unable to answer. She had departed from this world too early. When he knelt before her black coffin, he still couldn't fully recite the last volume his mother wanted him to learn by heart while she was still alive. Now, across the tumultuous years, this recitation was finally made whole. He knelt just as he had on that moonlit night. Their silhouettes mirrored the scene in his memories, but his past resentment had become agonizing grief, and that long-dead beauty had become someone else's pawn. Rongyan patted Nangong's hair, his cheeks, and in the end took hold of his bloodied hands. Her eyes fluttered shut. Sa'ar, I'm under his control, completely at his mercy. I could lose my mind any time. But Sa'ar, you must believe me. Everything I say is true. Everything I'm saying now is what I thought when I passed. I hate what your uncle has done, but I'm grateful to him. Mom, if it weren't for him turning me into a pawn, how could I see you again and tell you? Rongyang stiffly, slowly bent down. Shaking, she reached out and gathered Nangong tightly into her arms. And I left. My greatest regret was. She choked and fell mute. But it wasn't because Shuanglin had taken control. She held her son so tightly, continuing in a quavering voice. My greatest regret was that I've never hugged you properly. I never held you like this. So I love you too. Nangong cried himself breathless. I know, Mom. I've known for a long time. The ground quaked beneath them. Rongyan flinched, eyes snapping open. Wang Li's blood oath is about to break. Oh crap. What? Wang Li's blood oath is about to break. Here, I've seen it grow weaker every day. Rongyan grew agitated. Sa'ar, you mustn't risk yourself. I need to stop him. I need to stop Nangong Xie. Wiping his face, Nangong held up a hand. Mom, what do you see? What oath is going to break? Listen to me. Rongyan paused, pupils shrinking. For a moment it seemed as if she'd fallen under the sway of the spell again, but she clenched her jaw and resisted the black Genlong chess piece's power with her own mortal mind. Listen. Nangong Xie has gathered 5 holy weapons, which have drunk their full of the blood of thousands. Using them together, he can cut the bond between the demon dragon and the Nangong clan. That's why he No, but... Okay, so I was about to say that's why he needed to know if he had been able to successfully cut the tie between Moran and Bugui. But then that confirms that the person with the ice powers was him? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe he still has someone working with them and both of them needed to confirm that they were able to cut the connections between things so that they could end up cutting the connection between Nangong Changying and the demon dragon. Oh. Okay. Let's see. So maybe he already cut the connection between the mountain and Nangong Changying? Bond? Correct. The dragon sinew was the first bond he cut. So those reverent outside attacked again because the dragon sinew was cut? Cried Nangong. Yes, Rongyan gasped. The second is the dragon's scales. Nangong recalled the venomous snakes they'd faced. They'd likely transformed from the dragon's scales. Third, the dragon's tail. Was that shaking just now the tail? Asked Nangong, growing even ever paler. Correct. After that is the dragon's head and then the body. If Nangong Xie succeeds in using the 5th weapon, we'll lose all control over Ma Jiao. It will never again accept the sect founder as its master. Her face contorted and she fell silent. Shuanglin seemed to have sensed her betrayal and was doing his best to corrode her body. Rongyan moaned, burying pale fingers in her hair. No. Mom! Sar! She surfaced again at the sound of his voice, like someone dying of thirst. Spying a clear spring at last, she clutched him desperately to her, face written with helpless dread. He'd never seen such powerlessness in her. Heart twisting, Nangongse wrapped her in his arms. He'd been just a boy before. His mom had always been stoic and stern. She'd rarely shown affection. Now he could finally protect his mother, even if this was a passing illusion. The lingering final wishes impressed on her body after her souls had gone. It was enough. Damn. And the worst part is the only thing that's going through my mind is that scene at with Chushun's wife and her son, and how like she'd been trying to keep her son safe and then was overcome and ended up killing him. And I just really hope we're not gonna have a parallel here. I'm stressed. Oops, sorry. Rongyan was bent low, shaking in Nangongse's arms. When she finally lifted her head, her face was stained with the telltale bloody tears of Zhenlong pawns. Bitterness pooled in the back of Nangongse's throat. He reached out to wipe those tears away, but he couldn't do it. No matter how he tried, they'd only smear across her face. He closed his eyes in pain. I can feel him. He's noticed me. I haven't much time, Rongyan said. You have to listen. He's breaking the blood oath to create a new bond with the demon dragon. At that time, her mind went slack. She couldn't continue. But Nangongse suddenly understood. At that time, he said, face bloodless. When Wang Li obeys him alone, all of us on Mount Zhao, all of us will die. This cannot come to pass. Mother and son cried out in unison. Nangongse looked down at his mother. Mom, what do we do? Yang Gongxue hasn't perfected this forbidden technique. Coldness flared over Rongyan's face. He can't control the Zhenlong chess pieces. That's why he's facing the backlash, and that's how I'm somewhat lucid. I know what to do. Listen to me. Hands vice-like around Nangongse's fingers, Rongyan looked around the hall, her gaze fixed on her husband's body. The earlier quake had woken Nangong Liu, who was clutching his basket of tangerines and looking around in confusion. Rongyan watched him the way an eagle would eye a snake in its den. Someone must die. The words escaped her vermilion lips. Sa'ar, you have to kill him. He has to kill his own dad. How cruel does Meat Bun want to be? As if this is the most cruel thing she's done, when it really isn't by any measure. And I somehow lost my bookmark. That's great. Let's just use this for now. Okay, so I am quickly gonna stop it here for the first break of the 3 hours. And then I usually take about a 10-minute break, so we should be back around 7 past. I usually try and go like onto the hour, but because we're at the end of a chapter, I think this is just better. Meat Bun does not care about your feelings. That should be on a t-shirt. Okay, I will see you guys again in 10 minutes time. Okay, we are back. I hope the audio is good again. It's still good, I guess is the better way to say that. And let me quickly see where we were at. Okay, so quick thing that I wanted to ask you guys about so long, maybe you can, think about it a little bit, is whether or not you are up for me after we're done with this volume going back to Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish, because I'm quite enjoying the balance of, torture and then something that is more lighthearted, and then torture again and then something that is more lighthearted. And I think we could have that kind of carry us through most of the year, actually. That's currently the plan, but if you guys would like me to throw in Modu at some point, because I'm definitely going to be continuing it after I'm done with the show's reactions, then, that's also on the table. I just want to kind of finish off the things that we have already started and not start anything new yet, if that makes sense. Okay, so again, for anyone following along, we are on page 151, chapter 224, A Gentleman's Word. It's also interesting that these are very impersonal chapter titles that we've had in this arc. There's, it was this venerable one for a while, and then it was Shizun this, Shizun that, and now it's nothing relating to Chuaning or Moran, which I find very interesting. Okay. Nangong flinched. Mom? The oath with the demon dragon can only be strengthened with flesh and blood from the Nangong clan. It's you or him. So of course it must be him. He's just a pawn, a walking corpse. What right does he have to live on? He's an unfaithful husband, an unfit father. As a gentleman, he has no honor. He has no right to live. Who knows why Nangong Xie broke the Lingqi curse in a moment of mercy, allowing him to live for what? To play a fool? Nangong Xie stood rooted to the spot, as if he too had been made into a stiff and immovable pawn. I would love to believe that this is his mom saying this, and maybe his mom is saying this out of the goodness of her heart and so well intentioned. But the question is, why is he still alive? If not for his body to go into the soul blood pool thing as a sacrifice for the final bond to be cut. That's my fear, is that in doing what they think is right, they might play right into Nangong Xie's hands, if that makes sense. Sa'ar, your mother has no choice. I can't do anything. You're the only one. You're the only one who can cast him into the Dragon Soul pool. That's the pool I meant to say, sorry. When his blood enters the pool, that ignoble life of his will pay for everyone's safety. It will be a posthumous honor. Before Nangong Xie could reply, he heard someone shouting by the Dragon Soul pool. What's going on? Where did these beetles come from? Is that the head or the tail or something? Beetles? The first shout was followed by a wave of screams, and the shouts of Xu Zhenyong, Jiang Xi, and the others shouting let me try that again. The first shout was followed by a wave of screams, and the sound of Xu Zhenyong, Jiang Xi, and the others shouting orders. Hurry, Rongyan urged. The bond with the dragon's tail has been broken. Crap. Only the last two bonds remain. Once they're gone, not even throwing him into the blood pool will be of any use. Her voice woke Nanggongse from his daze. Why are you hesitating? Rongyan shouted. His own misdeeds brought Rufeng sect so low, Sa'ar. Wake up. There's no other choice. You... Her eyes rolled up, pupils contracting as Xishuanglin, finally at the limit of what he could allow, exerted his most vicious spiritual energy to regain control of her. The last of Rongyan's lucidity bled away, and a dreamlike expression surfaced on her face. She slowly rose and walked back to her spot in paradise, her eyes blank and unseeing. Sa'ar, she murmured, tell me, what comes before if the whole world blamed him? He despaired not. Oh, damn. This is painful. And it feels extra cruel for Meatban to have put Nanggong Liu back into the mind of a child, because now you're kind of effectively murdering a child and not just your father. Like, murdering your father is not bad enough as is. Now you have to murder an innocent mind in your father's body. Like, I didn't realize the Beatles were in ancient China. I'll see myself out. Look, we have to find the silver linings where we can. The jokes. Nanggongse trembled where he knelt on the ground. No force controlled him, yet he felt stuck in a web with no hope of escape. If the whole world praised him, he rejoiced not. If the whole world blamed him, he despaired not. This was what his mother asked of him, but it was so hard, too hard. Whether it was making him memorize the incomprehensible carefree wandering, or forcing him to shoot his bow until he could hit the bullseye 9 times out of 10, it was all far too difficult. Now she was asking him to use his own father's blood to strengthen their oath with the demon dragon. Through the sound of screaming, he knew how terrible the dragon's beetles were. He thought of Yewangxi, facing that tide of snakes alone in the dark. Yewangxi, who was waiting for him to return for her as soon as he could. Sa'ar. His mother's voice called from behind him. He drew his sword from his sheath and walked towards Nanggong Liu. I don't know if I'm ready to see this. He hated him. How could he not? When Nanggongse looked at this man, how could he not hate him? Tearing out his mother's heart, philandering with the sect leader of the Jiangdong Hall, blackmailing Li Wuxin of Bitan Manor, demolishing Rufeng sect overnight, and leaving the ruins of sect and reputation for him and Yewangxi, who had wandered in fear like stray dogs. They were stray dogs. How could he not hate them? Him. He brandished his sword. The blade glare shone on Nanggong Liu's face. Those aged features held the simple peace unique to children. Nanggong Liu looked at Nanggongse. Nanggongse's hand shook. He turned away. Get up. Who are you? Why are you asking me to get up? I want to stay here. I'm waiting for His Majesty. What Majesty? Nanggongse shouted, his pounding heart sending blood rushing through all his limbs. That's your little brother. What the hell are you doing, Nanggong Liu? That's your little brother. He's still His Majesty, even if he is my brother. Scared, Nanggong Liu curled into a ball again. Don't be so mean. Why are you crying? Was I crying? Nanggongse wondered. Am I? Am I crying? Bitter tears streamed down his cheeks, falling to the ground alongside the point of his sword. Nanggongse crumpled to his knees, howling in misery. Why had it come to this? I too want to know why Nangong deserves all of this pain. It doesn't feel fair at all. Like, I can understand Moran going through all this pain considering everything that he did in his past life, but not Nangong. He hated him. He hated his father enough to throw him into the Dragon Soul Pool and rebuild the oath between Mount Zhao and Wang Ling. So why couldn't he do it? This was the man who destroyed his home, destroyed his family. Why shouldn't he hate him? But he couldn't do it. When the glare of his sword shone on that face, when he saw the crow's feet at the corners of those eyes, what rose in him was a memory from when he was a little boy, stumbling after Nabaijin in Moonwhistle Fields. In his clumsiness, he had tripped. Rongyan stood before him and looked down at her bawling child. Get up. But it hurt so much. It really hurts. He tried his best. He did all he could, but he couldn't get to his feet. He reached out, pleading for his mom to bend down, to give him a hand. Rongyan never did. It was another pair of warm hands that scooped him from the ground, pulling him close to a broad chest. In the sunlight he saw a face, a young, mild, and an obsequious face, a face that was always gentle and conciliatory. Our needs help sometimes too. His father patted his hair, eyes kind. If he could already get up by himself, what would he need mom and dad for? This was Nangong's very first memory of his dad. In this vast hall, teeming with the walking dead, the only living man staggered to his feet without help from anyone. He stood up, then crashed back to his knees. Nangong kowtowed 3 times towards Rongyan, knocking his head on the ground. Then he rose and turned to leave. A hand tugged his sleeve. Nangong had stopped him. His father took a tangerine from his basket and handed it to Nangong. After some thought, he peeled a segment and pressed it to Nangong's mouth. Don't cry. I don't know what's wrong, but tangerines are sweet. They taste really good. I picked these myself. Try some. Nangong didn't want to eat, but that orange segment was right there in front of his lips. Please let it not be, I don't know, poison or something that we have to worry about later. Nangong handed it to him the same way he'd fed his son countless times in the past. The sweet tang of its juice filled his mouth. Nangong viciously swiped at his tears, then finally threw down the sword and strode out of the hall. He walked right. He better not. He better not. He better not. I am gonna scream if he does. He walked right to the edge of the Dragon Soul Pool, where the fighting was in full swing. The beetles dragon tail had become were ferocious. Many cultivators had already fallen, their blood winding in rivulets across the ground. The bugs were too small to target, and Grandmaster like Chuaning and Jiang Shi could only protect a few people behind them. The room bubbled and seethed like stew in a cooking pot. No one noticed Nangong's passage as he strode through the chamber. A few hours ago, he'd lost his core and been reduced to a commoner, doomed to a life of mediocrity. I hate how that is framed, like as if you being a normal person makes life not worth living. I understand where he's coming from, but there is something that really bothers me about it because I think it reflects kind of a lot of people's views on like disabilities and so on. And again, that it just bothers me. I can't phrase it more. Can't phrase it better than that. I'm sorry. Okay. And also the fact that he's just like leaving Yewangshi to suffer his, like, the loss of him after everything she's already lost. Now he thought perhaps fate knew of his aspirations. Although it hadn't treated him kindly, it had done him no wrong at the very end. The only one he still owed a debt to was his eyes strayed towards the tunnel that led to the soul-summoning platform. Yewangshi. A smile broke across Nangong's face. Thank goodness he never had the time to thank her for staying with him. To thank her for always... for always keeping her word. Thank goodness he hadn't had the time to tell her he finally understood her goodness, her affection. And wanted to stay with her forever. Otherwise he would have dragged a girl down with him for no reason. That would be... splash. What would that be? He didn't finish the thought. If he had, he might have lost all his courage. He didn't finish the thought, and that rolling blood swallowed him whole. I don't even want to read that sentence out loud. He didn't finish the thought before he became bones that dwindled to ash. I wish there was a way to know that I needed tissues without needing to know that I might cry. Like, crap. Maybe I should just have tissues on hand, standard, for the rest of this volume. The last thing he ever did was untie the fastening at his waist and toss the quiver his mother had embroidered for him, with the howling fey wolf now biting inside, to the side of the pool. Well, I already know what the title of this stream is gonna be. In the moment he turned to dust, Nangong could feel everything, but nothing hurt. He seemed to hear with perfect clarity the quiver landing safely on the shore. Now by Jin's whining cries. Even Chuaning's voice raw, shouting his name in a rare moment of loss of composure. He wanted to respond. He wanted to say, Shizun. I'm gonna need a moment. and tissues. Crap. Sorry, I'll be right back. Honestly, it feels like if people ask me what I do for a living, it's just like, oh, I cry for a living. That's what I do. Okay, let's see if I can try and keep my composure here. Just a little bit better. He wanted to respond. He wanted to say, Shizun, I accept you as my teacher. How could I not? To be honest, I remember everything. I remember bowing to you thrice beneath the flowering tree. But you didn't want me then. I had my own pride. I thought you looked down on me. So I pretended I was too young and had forgotten about it entirely. And later, when you wanted to accept me, I was scared of bringing you down too. It's fine now. I have a Shizun. I recited carefree wandering for Mom and Yawangshi and Nabajin. I recited carefree wandering for Mom and Yawangshi and Nabajin are safe. Oh, and I got to eat a piece of tangerine before the end. He peeled it himself. It tasted just like the ones he peeled for me when I was a child. So very sweet. Nangong's soul faded. Everything faded. Became a fleeting illusion. A dream of the past. All of it vanished, consumed by the blood oath. Brilliant light shone from the dragon soul pool. A dragon's cry echoed through the walls, and in the light's wake, the rot was destroyed. It reduced to dust the dragon tail beetles, dragon scale snails. If only there were snails. Snakes, and those corpses outside, propped up by dragon sinew, all collapsed into drifting powder. When Yewangshi rushed out of the tunnel, covered in blood, she caught a final glimpse. Of course she had to. Of course she had to actually see him die, because we don't have enough pain as is. She caught a final glimpse of Nangongse in the frozen moments before his body sank into the pool. She saw light bursting from the pool and the cultivator staring at it. She saw Nabajin. whimpering helplessly at the edge. And Chuaning, who'd lurched forward to grab him. Her sword clanked as it hit the ground. "Ase!" A scream that shook the heavens. Yewangshi was heavily wounded. She staggered forward. Before she could reach the blood pool, before her tears could fall, the combined pain of it broke her completely. Snake venom spread throughout her body. She was chilled all over, freezing cold. "Ase!" She stumbled ahead, lips green as they parted as she choked. Her tears streamed down. She couldn't hold herself up anymore. She crashed to the cold paving stones. Vision going dark, she crawled forward on bloody hands, trying to drag herself towards him. Even though she knew it was too late, even though she'd seen Nangong's step into the dragon soul pool with her own eyes, even though everything was already over, she couldn't accept it. How could she accept it? How could she ever accept it? If she persevered hard enough to reach the ledge, she thought wildly that man would return. If she held on for another moment, Nangong would return to her side. He promised. In the snake tunnel, he'd promised. Crap. Another breather. I feel like I've just been crying constantly lately. Like, first it was freaking Fangs of Fortune, which I'm not done with, so no spoilers. And now it's this. Okay. He said, "It's too dark here." "I know you don't like it. I'll come back as soon as I can." Her tears fell without cease. She pressed on despite everything, deliriously, shakingly, slowly crawling towards the dragon soul pool, its surface already calm without ripple. "I'm here, but what about you?" She saw only darkness. She felt only cold. Were vengeful ghosts closing in again? Were venomous snakes slithering towards them again? Oh! That's just freaking cruel. Why did they have to put that into an illustration? Like, really? Really, you could not choose a happy moment? I know they're few and far between, but really? It had to be peak devastation. Okay, here it is. For everyone who wants to feel all the hurt in the world, there you go. Perfectly distilled into an image. If there were two people who deserved it less, I can't tell you. Can't you do what you've always done? Seal them off with a paper talisman and then turn around with fire in your eyes? Can't you say, "Stay with me and I'll protect you" again? Nangong-se, ase. She sobbed, the sound tearing itself into a hollow as she wept. Sorry, into a howl as she wept. Can't even read anymore. Come back. A gentleman's word. You have to keep your promise. Come back. She wept until the poison and her wounds swallowed her. As she slipped into unconsciousness, the last thing she did was reach out to touch the edge of the dragon soul pool, as if she could still take hold. Of his sleeve. And keep him by her side. This was supposed to go better for them. Asa's unruly core could be tamed. Everyone's loathing would fade. They should have come out the other side. But darkness had fallen again. For her there had been no more hope of daybreak. Asa. Yuangshi murmured, her eyes finally fluttering shut. Interesting. Sorry, I probably look a terrible sight right now. But that bit at the end almost sounded, and like, to be fair, she could just be referring to, oh, things were supposed to go better for them now that the crisis of the wedding had been survived. But that almost read like she had a memory of the past life. And I don't think that's the case, but that very much felt like it. I'm gonna need another tissue. This one is like a disaster, so just give me another 2 seconds. I'm sorry, this is a very abrupt type stream. Sorry. Okay, the audio should be back now. I don't know how we're surviving the rest of this for 3 hours if they keep doing this to me. Let's see. Cause the sadness doesn't end just because the character has died. Usually the grief just keeps making me cry. Okay, let's go. The demon dragon's soul had quieted. Nangong had sacrificed himself to strengthen the tattered bond, and the blood pool now held Nangong's soul. This was not a magic Shishuanglin could break. It better not be, because I'm still super suspicious about why he kept his brother alive. His reign here was over. Shishuanglin wouldn't be able to control the smallest living thing on Mount Jiao. Nangong might not have had the unrivaled strength of Nangong Changyin, but it was he who had destroyed Shishuanglin's sharpest weapon. There was no sound but the soft cries of the wounded. The light from the dragon soul pool slowly faded. Ran crossed to Chuaning, who sat with his head lowered and his eyes closed. The hands clutching now by Jin were pale as ice. Were pale and ice cold, veins protruding in a desperate attempt to stay composed. Sir, you are allowed to let go. I mean, I don't think anyone would judge you. Shizun. Xuanning didn't say a thing. He placed Nabai Jin next to Yewangxi alongside Nangong's quiver and rose, eyes misty. By the time he looked towards the passage that led to the soul-summoning platform, that mist had become frost. With Tianwen glowing gold in his hand, he walked wordlessly into the pitch-black tunnel. The mist had become frost. I thought he was a wood and metal elemental. But frost is water, isn't it? With Tianwen glowing gold in his hand, he walked wordlessly into the pitch-black tunnel. Moran followed, and the rest of the disciples of Shizun Peak stepped forward in silence. No one asked questions, nor spoke a word. All understood what it meant to be part of the vanguard, but all of them advanced, none shirking their duty. Beside them came Tashi Palace, then Guiye. Before Jiang Xi entered the tunnel, he tapped a few disciples adept at healing and defense. Stay here and take care of the wounded, particularly Monsieur. If any of those who still live die under your care, I'll deduct a full year of your spiritual stone salary. Understood, sect leader. The door to the platform was already open. After their long and arduous journey, they had arrived at the final section of Rufeng's sect's ancestral temple, Rufeng's sacrificial altar, the soul summoning platform. No, it means his eyes had turned cold and motionless. It doesn't mean literal. Oh, okay. My bad. I thought there was mist in the altar room that had turned to frost. Okay. Okay, sorry, my brain is taking a vacation, it seems. Chapter 225, Mock My Madness. Ooh. The illustration is appreciated. The title makes me weary. Xuanning was first to emerge from the tunnel. The cramped passage opened up to a vast and empty platform, so broad it seemed to touch the horizon. Walking onto it was like stepping into a place of purity far above the heavens. The bright moon hung high and round above them. There was nothing at all on the platform. No plants stirred, but as the cold wind bit into their skin and parted the hazy fog, they saw a figure sitting in its center. Shuanglin. The group filed their way out. Most fell into shocked stillness at the sight of their enemy. Xu Zhengyong was stunned into speech. That's usually not the way it works. What? How? What's going on? Good heavens, someone whispered in alarm. How did it come to this? Is he dead or alive? Moran walked towards the seated figure. The closer he got, the more unsettling the scene became. Shuanglin sat cross-legged on the ground, his eyes closed. The right side of his body was rotted beyond recognition. Putrid fluid and pus-laced blood streaming from his flesh, creating a vile stench. Planted in the ground around him were 5 holy weapons wreathed in vicious energy. Moran's fingertips twitched. Bugui was among their number. The dark blade had been shoved deep into the earth, its faint green glow pooling on the ground beneath before joining the light of the other 4 weapons and surging into Shuanglin's heart. The lines of Shuanglin's gaunt face flickered with the weapon's inconsistent light. Behind Shuanglin was a maelstrom of pitch-black smoke, like a barrier about to take shape. or maybe a tear in time. I still have a terrible theory that Tashi and Jun of a past life is trying to make a comeback, but anyway. Or of a parallel universe. As the others came out onto the platform, Huang Xiaoyu murmured in disbelief. Is this weapon installment? Shimeng looked to his dad for an explanation, but turning his head brought Xu Zhengyong's bloodless face into view. Whatever this technique was, it was clear he couldn't believe anyone was capable of using it. At least we suddenly understand why the first place to be targeted was Jiangcheng Lake. That's not the name, is it? But the lake that had all the weapons in it, because he was obviously looking for 5 weapons that would fulfill his needs. And he couldn't find a one that worked for wood. What is this? Another junior asked quietly. It seemed Chumeng wasn't the only one in the dark. Studying Xu Zhonglin's face at a distance, Chuaning answered, Weapon installment requires the sacrifice of one's own soul to holy weapons that have slaked their thirst with human blood. Great. The caster creates a binding oath with the weapon, swearing to allow their soul to be torn apart by the weapon's spirit after their death and transformed into a sacrifice that strengthens the holy weapon. A living sacrifice to a holy weapon? Shumeng exclaimed. Why do such a thing? Because he doesn't have enough spiritual energy, Chuaning said. This technique allows him to massively increase his own strength in a short period of time. If he offers his soul to the weapon will let him borrow its power. There came a faint sigh. Everyone took a step back. Shimeng unsheathed Longcheng, eyes trained on Shuanglin's face. Shuangling slowly opened his eyes. When he looked up into the moonlight, half his face appeared as it always did. The other had rotted into stinking mush. Chu Zongshi, gentlemen, you found me after all. Bracing himself with an arm on the ground in front of him, he rose, swaying, and looked past all those weary, disgusted, terrified faces with no change in expression. His remaining eye roved over them, a mocking, wicked malevolence flickering in its depths. But as he scanned the crowd once, then twice, without seeing the face he sought, the smiling cruelty froze and turned to anger. Where is Ye Wangxi? Shuanglin raged. How dare you speak her name? Shimeng yelled back. Go, Shimeng. Shimeng, best boy. What have you done to her? None of your business. What right does a heartless, bloodless, fleshless person like you have to care for Ye Wangxi? Care? The word seemed to startle Shuanglin. His face went blank. Then he narrowed his eyes, as if he had mastered his surprise. Why would I care? How ridiculous. Why are you wasting so much breath on him? Kill him, Jiang Shi commanded. He lifted his right hand, and the sword Shu Huang appeared in his grasp. I do wish they would just kill him, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be that easy, and also I fear there is information that we don't know yet that would be lost if he is killed, but I don't know if we can afford for him to stay alive long enough to find out that information. I'm just curious that whether or not he's in denial over his continued care for Ye Wangxi, or if he needs Ye Wangxi for some reason, which makes me worry about her health. Like, I would like to believe that he has a little bit of humanity left somewhere in his wicked shell, but that feels a little bit naive. As the blade... he lifted his right hand and the sword Shu Huang appeared in his grasp. As the blade whistled down towards Xu Shuanglin, a black shadow flashed between them and broke Jiang Shi's strike. Arching a brow, Jiang Shi snarled. Mo Zongshi, why are you stopping me? I have questions for him. Moran, this might be a terrible or a good idea. Like, he could reveal all of Moran's secrets. And I don't, like, because Moran can't remember that he was confronted by someone else who knows about the previous timeline, he doesn't know that his secret is out there. I have questions for him. Moran turned, a complex light flashing in his eyes. Pursing his lips, he seemed to consider several ways to begin, but what left his mouth was, "Where is your accomplice?" Xu Shuanglin scratched his feet on the ground. Even now, he managed to move lazily. Moran noticed he was barefoot again. As you say, he's my accomplice. Xu Shuanglin bared his white teeth in a smile. Somehow it still looked bright on what remained of his face and contained a hint of mockery. Then you should know I'll never tell. This humble one knows something of brotherhood, after all. Savior, heroes, and do-gooder gentlemen, don't bother trying to get it out of me. I mean, you are dealing with Ta Xinjun, but he is a reformed Ta Xinjun. He is Ta Xinjun nonetheless. He looked pointedly at Jiang Gui, quilled red in Moran's hand. Don't get any ideas either. I'll cut out my tongue if I need to. There is no shortage of methods I could use to conceal the truth. Shimeng was flabbergasted. Someone like you has the guts to speak of brotherhood? Oh? Why can't I speak of brotherhood? Supportive friends, harmonious siblings, kindly teachers, and filial students. The good enjoying peaceful serenity while the evil are just punished. That's how the world ought to be. Do you imagine you're the only ones who knows such principles? His brazenness left Shimeng stupefied. You? Talking about harmonious siblings? Kindly teachers and filial students? Shimeng pointed at him in disbelief. You gotta be joking. Why? Xu Shuanglin replied. Are you crazy? You're the one who attacked your brother. You're the one who goaded Nangong Liu into eating Lu Fenghua's spiritual call. You've done all sorts of nasty stuff, and now you say so righteously that this is how the world should be? Faced with Shimeng's torrent of questions, Xu Shuanglin only grinned. He neither confirmed nor denied, but instead asked, Little brother, how old are you this year? What's it to you? It doesn't matter if you tell me or not. Xu Shuanglin looked him up and down. You look about 20. 20-year-olds are always like this, full of passion and naivete, up on your high horse and convinced of your own capabilities. He paused, smiling. What a wonderful age to be. The glow from the holy weapons on the ground flowed inward, passing him boundless spiritual energy. This was how he maintained control over those thousands of general chess pieces and dealt with the backlash from the pawns. Even with the weapon's help, his skin was rotting at a pace visible to the naked eye. Oh, great. This will be fun to see in a live action if we ever get it. My goodness. Xu Shuanglin paid it no heed, as if he couldn't see his body being devoured by the vicious energy. Pacing before the swirling barrier, he continued. 20. Do you know what I was doing at your age? What were you doing? Shimeng said, indignant. Everyone knows what you were up to. You stole the sect leader's ring and became the head of Rufeng sect instead of your Ge. Within 2 months, you killed 2 of the upper cultivation realm's sect leaders. When people sought you for accountability, you dug out their eyes. You freak. You're the perfect example of cruelty, malevolence, and ignorance. If I had done all of that by 20 like you did, it would be better I died at 12. Shimeng is not caring about anything, and we know he's gonna be the one who takes it the hardest when it comes to Moran's secret being revealed. Is it naive of me to still hope for a happy ending? Probably. Again, no spoilers. Mengar, Xu Jingyong warned quietly, "Hush." The last thing he wanted was for Xu Meng to pique Xu Zhuanglin's interest and bring doom upon himself. I mean, fair. No, don't. Xu Zhuanglin's ears were still sharp. Waving his hands, he grinned. I mean, wouldn't it be ear? Like the other one's rotted, isn't it? Keep going. Why hush? His patronizing smile, as though he was watching a parrot flapping its wings and chirping on its perch, infuriated Xu Meng further. You have no shame. You're helpless. What shame is there to speak of? This history you mentioned is nothing I feel shameful. You say I stole the sect leader's ring. Who doesn't know positions of power go to those with the strength to take them? My useless Gaga has no talent at all, but that silver tongue helped him prosper. Those who'd never tested him thought him formidable indeed. They called us Rufeng's pair of young masters. They said our spiritual energy and skills were perfectly matched. Don't you think that was ridiculous? The two of us? Xu Zhuanglin snorted, putting a hand to his brow. Forget it. Even as a child, I could defeat his best attempt. Us, a matched pair. While I was practicing the sword, he was cuddling up to his mother, eating tangerines. Now we understand the love-hate relationship with tangerines. I toiled in the heat of summer and the cold of winter while he lazed about year-round. While I poured my efforts into making a name for myself at the spiritual mountain competition, he snuck around me and took the credit. And what came after? All of you named the hard worker a thief and gave the sluggard the glorious title of the world's most outstanding talent. Was that justice? Xu Meng hesitated but didn't falter. But that doesn't mean you had to resort to this. Nonsense. Of course you'd say that. There's nothing easier than lecturing other people on empty principles. Look, you can empty principle and people are saying things because they haven't been through it all you want, but murdering, what was it? 69 cities worth of people because you're bitter? You're not gonna talk your way out of that. Of course you'd say that. There's nothing easier than lecturing other people on empty principles. Your tune would change if it were your turn. If such a thing happened to you at the spiritual mountain competition, could you endure it? His retort caught Xu Meng off guard, rendering him mute. If it had happened to him, could he have endured it? Hundreds of people on the field pointing at you, saying you have no shame, giving him all the applause and accolades, leaving you with nothing but the stain of of a false crime you could never wash away. All your effort reduced to rubble in the face of his sweet talk. Is that justice? I mean, I don't know if endure is the right word because we saw what happened to NANGONG, but he basically put NANGONG through something much worse than he went through, and NANGONG didn't go around burning down 69 towns. So, you know, there's levels. I Shizun scoffed. Next, killing those two sect leaders. One spent his days drumming on the temple block and reciting the prettiest sutras, while the other was known for his strength and righteousness. But they both callously shoved me into an endless hell for their own gain. I'm asking you, gentlemen, why should I have spared these worthless lives? The cultivators from the two sects he'd mentioned went purple in the face, but neither could muster a strong rebuttal. It was Abbot Shuangjing of Wubai Temple who finally sighed and closed his eyes, hands pressed together before him. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I mean, it's not a lie, but that's maybe not the best argument right now. That's right, it makes the whole world blind. Everyone wants to bring an end to the grudges, but why does it have to start with me? Each word was steeped in fury, but the smile remained on Xu Shuanglin's face. It was light as a breeze, slightly curled in a sneer. If I slap you across the face, then said eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, so you can't hit me back. Would you like that, you old bald donkey? Again, it's equating to things that are very much not the same. It's like saying it's okay to hit someone with a car because he stubbed your toe. Wash your filthy mouth out, NANGONG, someone shouted. How can you speak to your senior this way? Can we stop? Like, why are we worried about the fact that it's a senior that he's speaking to like this? Hey, I'm also your senior, replied Xu Shuanglin. You better wash your filthy mouth out too, sweetheart. The cultivator fell silent. Yeah, that's a terrible argument. Stroking his beard, Huang Xiaoye began. NANGONG, Xu Shuanglin held up a hand, the corners of his half-rotten mouth curving. Let's agree on one thing. Call me Xu Shuanglin. I don't like the name NANGONG. Why should he respect you enough to do that? To follow any of your requests? Huang Xiaoye swept his sleeves. Even if you killed those two sect leaders for wrongs done, the debt should have died with them. Why did you gouge out the eyes of so many others? See, I used to go by your principles, but no one listened to me then. He paused, chuckling. Later on, I became a madman. And you all tried to make a madman talk principles. Oh, you're a righteous gentleman. You're so funny. He started clapping, making wet sounds. So funny. Moran, who'd been standing silently nearby, spoke up. So you've only ever wanted justice, is that right? Xu Shuanglin said nothing. His gaze roved upward and fixed on Moran's face. On top of the stone platform, wrapped by freezing winds, they looked at each other. In Moran's eyes, Xu Shuanglin's silhouette faded until what he saw wasn't this rotting, dying man. He looked past Xu Shuanglin and saw another shadow, one wearing a beaded crown and lavish robes of black and gold. Emperor Tashinjun himself from the past life. We met Nangong Liu on the way here. He called you your majesty. I see you've given yourself a title. You've become the emperor of this temple. You're now the judge, jury, and executioner. Everything you say is right, or becomes right. Anything you say is wrong, becomes an unforgivable sin. You decide who lives and dies, who is rewarded or punished. Is this the justice you wanted? Xu Shuanglin paused for a moment, then sneered. But Moran saw Taishin sneering, that pale and handsome face filled with ridicule. What does it matter? You saw for yourself. I, too, once believed, you wise gentlemen, believed in so-called equality of opportunity. But how did that work out? He paused, pacing back and forth within the holy weapon array, a mad glint in his eyes. You were the ones who put a coward on a pedestal and trampled heroes beneath your feet. You were the ones who treated hard work like dung and made altars of outhouses. You who saw flattery as friendship and pride as arrogance, you committed all your misdeeds with impunity, then shoved me into the mud. You turned and told me it didn't matter how great an injustice I've suffered, how my brother framed and defamed me. It doesn't matter what kind of humiliation I've endured. That's my own personal business. No matter how bad it was, I shouldn't vent my anger on the innocent. Huh, what a joke. I will give him the slightest bit of credit in the sense that what he went through does matter. He has a right to be angry, but that anger doesn't give him the right to do what he did. What I think this could potentially be or what could make this very interesting is that NANGONG is a very clear foil for Moran. I don't think anyone is surprised by that. But what I think we're gonna see here is what happens. What I would like to see here is what happens when Taishin doesn't have a Chuaning. What happens if there isn't someone that can be that final grounding point for making someone realize that all they've done is worthless? Because we saw Taishin have that turning point before he chose death for himself. Which made it more believable why he was so ready to change completely when he was given a new life. But I don't think we're gonna see that for NANGONG. I mean, maybe. Who knows? Moran saw Taishin's sneer widen into an evil grin. Why didn't they blame you? They didn't baselessly accuse you of misdeeds. Of course you have the breath for pretty platitudes, whereas I was only seeking karmic justice on my own terms. Karmic justice? Moran stood facing Taishin. This man has just fully been like, I'm not even facing the present. How many did you kill for your karmic justice? You named yourself emperor atop piles of white bones and tides of crimson blood. Did you never feel the slightest regret? What have I got to regret? I killed all those people, but I'll give them a chance at rebirth, of course. All will become pawns in my hands, their every move dependent on my whims. Only then will black and white be made manifest, good and evil as distinct as clear Jing River flowing in the muddy way. That is justice. Moran paused. You've used your own used your own morals as the measure for all humanity. I am that measure. Zhuangmin stood, clothes whipping in the wind. He was NANGONG to everyone else, and Taishin to Moran. Oh, that sounds... wow. Look what I did in the front hall. Did you not find it beautiful? the kind joy, the peace they earned, while the vile are burned and cooked alive. He who wielded the murderer's knife will bear his own neck for retribution. Every debt will be settled, every eye repaid with an eye. What's wrong with that? You have quite a high opinion of yourself, Moran said. Why shouldn't I? Ta Xinjun replied. As I see it, this is the greatest retribution of all. Everyone was silent in the face of Xu Shuanglin's deranged reasoning. Before they'd come here, many expected Xu Shuanglin had done all this for power, or to settle his own grudges. None had imagined Xu Shuanglin considered everything he'd done righteous and just. Meatbun heard the saying, "No one is the villain in their own story," and just ran miles with it. She ran 11 volumes with it, I swear. In this world, who was fit to be the fairest measure? Perhaps not even the descendants of God Tianyin Pavilion. So, I feel like I'm talking too much, but the right answer is there is no one person to be the fairest measure. But if there were to be a person, the person who is the fairest measure would never claim themselves to be the fairest measure, because they would recognize that they still have work to do on themselves. Moran stood, unmoving. After a moment, he regained enough serenity and to turn to that Ta Xinjun who stood facing him. His beaded crown had disappeared, and his handsome face turned sunken, darkening to black. Moran blinked. The man before him was Xu Shuanglin, not Emperor Ta Xinjun. It was just that Xu Shuanglin acted so much like the man he remembered being that he'd mistakenly believed he was interrogating himself through space and time. That feels like foreshadowing. Okay, let me see if I understand. All those pawns in the hall, despite not having the spiritual energy to sustain them, you want them to keep their living minds. You've built your kingdom in this temple, and now you're their god. You're His Majesty the Emperor. You've split the world into two halves, where the good are good and the evil are evil. This is the justice you've yearned for. As Moran spoke, a blizzard of memories whirled like a storm in his head. He remembered that Xu Shuanglin, who died beneath falling blades to save Xu Shuanglin, who died beneath falling blades to save Wangxi. The Xu Shuanglin who stood in the courtyard farewell to 3 lifetimes with his feet bare as he teased his parrot. The Xu Shuanglin who'd asked his brother for half a tangerine at Jincheng Lake. The tangerine tree on Mount Jiao. Nangong Liu with his mind returned to childhood. Maybe he does have a Chuaning. Liu Fenghua, who'd been snatched back from the endless hell. Every one of these details linked together, cresting in his mind like a breaking wave. Moran looked up. His dark eyes held no ridicule nor disdain, only quiet observation. Am I right, Nangong Xue? Call me Xu Shuang. No. Your name is Nangong Xue. Moran walked up to him, studying the rotting ruin of the man. No one could understand Nangong Xue's mindset better than him. They were both men forced to take a dark road. Ta Xinjun from the past life was the same as Xu Shuanglin from this one. He saw it with crystal clarity. He watched for the faintest change in Xu Shuanglin's expression, catching every minute detail. Then he stopped, eyes downcast. It's so cold outside, and the ground so chilly. Moran murmured, Nangong Xue, Why aren't you wearing shoes? Moran really said, let me remind you what Ye Wangxi always did for you. The smile on Shuanglin's face froze, but he swiftly brought that flickering expression back to an impenetrable strength. I don't want to. Don't you love it when Ye Wangxi asks you that question? Shuanglin fell silent. The first time I saw you in the courtyard, you weren't wearing shoes. She was the one who brought them to you. I'm sure you had no idea how smug you looked. Moran watched Shuanglin's face without blinking. This was the answer he'd guessed at on the beaches of Flying Flower Isle, watching apocalyptic fire sending up roiling black smoke as it consumed Ligny on the opposite shore. NANGONG, you've always hoped someone would notice your feet were bare. You hoped for someone to say. Fear flashed across Shuanglin's smiling face. He took a step back, nose wrinkling in a snarl. Shut up. But of course, Moran wouldn't. He watched Shuanglin. His erratic response had transformed Moran's tentative assumption into certainty. He felt again as if he weren't seeing Shuanglin, but himself from a past life, trapped in an inescapable darkness. Put on your shoes, it's called out. In the unsteady light, amid the clanging of the holy weapons, Shuanglin leapt, panther-like, at Moran and grabbed him by the lapels. The human hand and stinking claw clutched him at the same time. Shuanglin's eyes were bloodshot. Shut up, he snarled. Shut your mouth. Okay. But before I do, let me say one last thing. Don't! Shuanglin cried in despair, like a dragon with its vulnerable inverted scale torn away, blood streaming freely from his wound. Don't! Ye Wangxi is a lot like Lu Fenghua, isn't she? Moran's words were quiet. They seemed to drain Shuanglin of all his strength. I just had an absurd thought, and I can't remember all the revelations surrounding Lu Fenghua well enough to know whether or not the thought is ridiculous or just a fact that I'd forgotten. Was Shuanglin in love with Lu Fenghua? Moran's words were quiet. They seemed to drain Shuanglin of all his strength. He stood, mute and dazed. Those familiar with both Lu Fenghua and Ye Wangxi fell silent as well. They were completely different people with no blood relationship. In these rolling sands of time, one had died before the other was even born. But at Moran's reminder, realization dawned. Indeed they were alike. Ye Wangxi's mannerisms and movements, her personality and temper, poise and speech, were the spitting image of Shuanglin's dear mentor, Lu Fenghua. Shuanglin released Moran's lapels as if burned. Hands twisted into talons, he buried his face in his palms as his shoulders shook. Is he? Shimeng murmured. Is he crying? Crying? Certainly not. Shuanglin kept his head lowered, face in his hands. As the shaking of his shoulders grew more violent, ghoulish giggles escaped between his fingers. The sound spread like ripples on water. He let his fingers fall and cackled. Alike? What nonsense! Have you ever even met Lu Fenghua? You merely glimpsed his corpse when we opened the infinite hells. How are you so convinced after one look? Who thinks highly of himself now? Since you've brought up the infinite hells and the matter of Le Bonquois' corpse, said Moran, let me ask you another question then. Where is he? I had a thought regarding that, but we'll worry about that after the end of the chapter. Xu Shuanglin's eyes narrowed, his smile stiffening into a leer. What do you mean? In your kingdom, good and evil are punished or rewarded at your whim. But you couldn't bear to kill Nangong Liu. In fact, you even released him from his Lingqi fruit curse. I couldn't fathom why. But if he's still here, there's no way you would abandon Lo Fenghua. Your spiritual energy isn't enough to control all your pawns, so you're offering your soul to the holy weapons. But I fought you at Jinqiang Lake and the Peach Blossom Springs. I know you haven't reached your limits. Haven't? Oh no, that's not good. Xu Shuanglin said nothing. Other than reckless use of the Zhenlong chess formation, there's another reason you're flagging. The second forbidden technique you've spent all these years working towards. Moran paused, letting the words strike true. Has your rebirth finally brought Luo Fenghua back from the 18th hells? All color had fled Xu Shuanglin's face. As he took breath to speak, a wisp of white smoke rose from the black maelstrom behind him. Xu Zhengyong, seasoned warrior that he was the first to react. Crap, there's something beyond his array. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. And I just realized we went way past the hour mark that I was supposed to stop at. And I do need just a little bit of a break. But before... yeah, I just need to get some water. So maybe like a 5-minute break. Before we do get into the break and then into the next chapter, I had a thought regarding Shushin, who is the guy that looks like Moran. So I mentioned I'm, at the point where Moran is trying to go and fetch Chuaning's soul during my reread. And something that struck me that I found a little bit interesting was the fact that Shushin was paying a debt to the underworld by working in one of the departments outside of Rebirth. Now, it's kind of like dismissed as, oh, he's waiting for his wife to be freed from the situation that she's in with the wife-child soul being entangled. It's framed that that's why he is doing it, but I can't help but wonder, like, what debts is he paying back? And I wonder if that debt doesn't have to do with Chuaning in some way. Because I just find it so odd that they look so similar across 200 years, and that the Chuaning apparently has multiple souls. So that's something that I'm kind of keeping in the back of my mind now. But yeah, we'll see. We still have a lot to learn. Okay, I will see you guys again. Let's make it at 25-2. Okay, so I am having very strange issues with not only my camera, but kind of potentially OBS as well, where, so I can't connect my camera. OBS seems to be fine from what the live is showing me, but it's like, from my side, it looks like it's not streaming, which I'm finding very strange. So I don't know if you guys can even hear me. If you can, let me know. I'm unsure how to proceed, if I should just stop the live here, because we only have 15 minutes left, or if you guys would be up for me just popping my anime character there in the center and then just continuing via only the audio for the next 15 minutes. But yeah, I had to change my camera's battery, and then because it had died, and then right after that it just is not wanting to show up on OBS, and the only thing I can think to fix it would be closing OBS, which would end the stream. So yeah, no, the can't see, we're all on the same page about that. There's nothing to see. So yeah, let me know if you would like me to continue just with the voice with a new chapter, or if you guys would rather we end the stream now, and then I can actually put up a poll for that. Maybe I should put up a poll for that. And then maybe just do a slightly longer stream, though 3 hours is quite me at my limit already. But let's see if I can put up a poll here. Okay, there is the poll. You guys can let me know. Yeah, while I wait for you guys to let me know, so just for reference sake, we ended on page 175, chapter 225. We're about to start chapter 226. So let's just see. Okay, 100% are for us to keep going. So I am sorry for the very uninteresting visuals. I can pop my, let's just pop the cartoon figure in here. I will feel a little bit better about not having a face if there's at least some weird representative of me here. So let's just do that, and then we can get right into it. Let's get going. There we go. Okay. Yes, tech is indeed great when it works and terrible when it doesn't. Okay, chapter 226, Never to Forget. Great. Everyone unsheathed their weapons. Zheng Yong pulled Chumeng behind him, face grim. Mengar, don't move. Stay behind me. When they first saw the weapon in Solomon Ray, no one had tried to break it. If they did, Xu Shuanglin's spiritual energy would dissipate, killing him and leaving their questions unanswered. No one had expected Shizunglin to be hiding another array behind weapon installment. Oh, so that's what happened. What could it be? A rift in space he could use to escape, or a vicious curse he could use as a last recourse to fight them off? Chuaning raised a hand, and a barrier sprang up between their group and the mysterious array. NANGONG had died right before his eyes. He couldn't stand to see more young cultivators lose their lives. Be careful. Don't act rashly. The sky darkened, clouds swirled, covering the face of the moon, and the wind kicked up sand into a blinding haze. Dressed only in his thin white robe, Shizunglin stood in the wild gale and bared his teeth in a grin. Thanks for listening to my rambling so long. Seriously, thank you. Everyone, let the real show begin. Crap, so he was buying time. As he spoke, his rotting claw of a hand pointed into the air. The swirling black array rushed into his palm like a soaring dragon, revealing the gleaming formation of the curse beneath. What kind of formation is this? Shumeng cried. Is it rebirth? Shi Zhengyong asked Abbot Shuangjing of Wubai Temple. The man shook his head. Why is he a master of rebirth, but he never used it in front of others? This old monk doesn't know what it looks like. The assembled cultivators stared at the array with the tension of a drawn bow, taking in Shizunglin's every movement with rapt attention and perfect silence. Only the eerie whistling of that unnatural tempest wailed in their ears. They were like a pot of oil hot enough to erupt, merely waiting for that first drop of water. And like a stone dropped, the explosion came. The corpse demon array, came a cry. I don't think we've heard mention of this. It was Hanlin the sage, Hua Binan, who was the first to recognize the array. The corpse demon array, he cried. Shizunglin is summoning Lu Fenghua's revenant to take us down with him. Stop him. That formation must not take shape. And we were all side-eyeing Hanlin the sage. I still kind of am. Panic took hold the instant the array was named. This was a devilish spell not far from the three forbidden techniques. It had originated from the dark medicinal practices. As the foremost Grand Master of medicine in the world, Hanlin the sage could never mistake it. Jiang Shi had likewise heard tales of this array since he was a child. He reacted much more swiftly than others, leaping toward the array with Shu Heng in hand. With a thunderous boom of spiritual energy, the delicate sword struck towards the array's center. With a clash of metal and falling sparks, Shizunglin rushed in front of the array and parried Jiang Shi's blade. Cold light gleamed in his eyes. This is the last wish of my life. Don't even dream of stopping me. You don't deserve dreams, sure, sir. The last wish of your life, Jiang Shi said acidly, is to die with us here. Nonsense, Shizunglin bit out. His sword hilt shook in his hand, his tendons protruding and his face flushed red. You're falling apart. What's summoning a corpse demon going to do? Drag a few more people with you to the grave. Corpse demon? Grave? Open your eyes. How is this An arrow imbued with spiritual energy streaked towards the array just as Jiang Shi pinned Shizunglin in place. No! Shizunglin's infinite composure finally shattered on a scream. Stop! I'm curious. His lapse of concentration gave Jiang Shi the opening he needed. Blood misted the air. Shizunglin crumpled to his knees in pain, but his eyes were crazed with despair. He wasn't looking at his own mutilated flesh and exposed ribcage, but rather at the array. This strengthens my belief that obviously there's someone behind him, and that the someone only gave him the information they needed, like they needed to give him. I think they lured him into a false sense of belief that this was rebirth, and when in actuality whoever it is just wanted to lure him into a false sense of security that would conveniently take him and a lot of this person's a lot of the people that this mysterious person considers to be a threat out in one fell swoop. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm just saying words at this point. Xu Shuanglin's cheeks were flecked with filthy blood, his eyes bulging and his lips trembled. Never before had he shown such fear on his face. Whether as Nangong of the past or Xu Shuanglin of the present. His shaking hands flew through the gesture for sending out spiritual energy, putting everything he had into keeping that arrow from piercing the array. The arrow shattered midair. Crap. Xu Shuanglin panted, his wounded arm dripping blood. The corner of his mouth bubbled with crimson foam, but when he saw the arrow falling, his white lips formed into a quivering smile. But, Moran heard Shimei murmur at his side, this isn't the corpse demon array. How do you know, Shimei? Overhearing, Huang Xiaoye snorted, hand on his beard. Youngling, are you not embarrassed? Could Hanlin the sage be wrong? But Shimei shook his head resolute. The corpse demon array doesn't look like this. You can't be serious. You think you know better than the sage? Moran cut in. Shimei, don't waste your breath on this geezer. You're sure this isn't the corpse demon array? I'm glad he's listening to Shimei. I'm just concerned. It's weird. I had a lot of suspicions about Shimei, and a part of me still harbors them, but another part of me wants to believe that even though there might be more to Shimei than we know right now, that he's not the ultimate villain. And I don't know why I have so much hope and faith in him. It looks like it, but it's not the same thing. The corpse demon array has a fish scale gleam. This one is glowing, but its light isn't breaking in separate scales, it's continuous. They heard Jiang Xi's enraged shout, "Yang Gongxi, what the hell are you doing?" Xu Shuanglin ignored him. He dragged his broken body up before the brilliant glow, blood dripping across the ground as he went. The smile on his face widened. In the light of the array, he looked almost boyish. His smile one of cheerful youth. Soon, he whispered. He reached out and tapped the array's surface. The touch rippled outward. He looked as if he was waiting to see the face of a long-lost friend or kin he'd been apart from for years. Neither his wounds nor his rotting flesh hindered his joy. His eyes shone as he murmured, "Soon, so soon, just the last little bit." The roar of the wind finally quieted. The clouds parted, revealing the moon hanging round in the sky. Xu Shuanglin's eyes were wide with hope. He was shaking again, but this time not from fear. This was excitement, an unstoppable anticipation. Shifu. They saw golden light in the array, then the shape of a gleaming spiritual core. The ray poured light into it, those thousands of wisps gradually taking human form. Luo Fenghua? It's Luo Fenghua? The long-dead Luo Fenghua materialized upon Rufeng Sect's soul-summoning platform. A blooming tangerine tree stretched its branches within the golden array, white petals drifting down around him. He sat beneath it in the Kaladin robes of Rufeng Sect, playing the harp with his eyes closed. He was still a mirage, a heavy illusion. Only that ghost form's spiritual core was real, clawed back from the underworld, gleaming within the hollow spectre. A flicker of petals on the water of a pond, the thrum of strings on the opposite shore. A man's quiet voice emerged from the spiritual core, laden with incomparable tenderness. Beneath the tree, Lo Fenghua was singing a local song from Sichuan. Best are those years you come of age, seeing the world's flowers astride a fast horse. A raspy voice joined Lo Fenghua's faint notes, Shuang completing the duet. His voice was awful to listen to, like a broken gong or crushed metal, but still it answered, stubborn and resolute. Shu Zhengyong stared. This is the corpse demon array? What's going on? He wasn't the only one confused. Even Jiang Shi had furrowed his brow, pursing his lips in silence. His eyes were full of questions. As that golden light shone, Lu Fenghua's body slowly gained definition. His eyes, nose, and mouth took shape. Above the soothing singing, Hua Binan shouted, "Hurry! The corpse demon is forming." Shimei had kept a low profile since they'd set out from Shizun Peak. He hadn't spoken much, aware how low his status was, but now he turned to Hua Binan and said, voice carrying, "Senior Sage, you're mistaken. This isn't the corpse demon array, it's rebirth." How does he know? From when they were witnessing Chuaning come back? I'm trying to remember who was present for that. Moran understood at once. Shimei was right. This wasn't the corpse demon array. It was the formation for rebirth. But in such a crowd, who would believe? An insignificant little cultivator or the famous medicine sage? As soon as Hua Binan said the corpse demon was taking shape, everyone cared only for their own safety, no matter what Shimei said. A dark shadow shot past before Shuang could react. A swift cultivator had driven a dagger full of spiritual energy into the array. No! One strike shattered Lo Fenghua's spiritual core. The golden light of the barrier flickered and died, falling to pieces. No! No! Shizun! Shizun! The parallels are paralleling way too hard. Zhu Zhuangling staggered to his feet, knocking the assailant several feet away. It was a Guyi cultivator who'd obeyed Hua Binan in that critical moment. He spat a great mouthful of blood. Zhu Zhuangling hadn't held anything back. Weakened as Zhu Zhuangling was, that cultivator was still knocked to the ground, where he curled up into a whimpering heap and died. Oh my word. But it wasn't too late. The cultivator's death changed nothing. Lo Fenghua's ghost form spiritual core that Zhu Zhuangling had painstakingly dragged out of the 18 hells was punctured. But it was too late, sorry. He crawled to Lo Fenghua's spectral feet and tugged at his robes, but the mirage had already fallen apart. Lo Fenghua's clothes were like falling sand or spilling water in his hands, eluding his grasp no matter how he tried. Shizun. Shizun, he began, before his voice grew louder, eyes flickering madly. Lo Fenghua! Lo Fenghua! It was no use. Regardless how he yelled, regardless what name he used, Lo Fenghua's hazy form was disappearing. It dissolved into tiny motes of light that drifted away on the breeze, leaving nothing behind. Zhu Zhuangling knelt on the ground, dazed. His back was ramrod straight, his body stiff as a board. He didn't move, nor did he cry. He didn't even shout anymore. Atop the soul-summoning platform, in the biting wind, a cracked spiritual core lost its light and fell to the ground, dulling to nothing. Spiritual energy meant for Lo Fenghua's reborn body dispersed like so much willow fluff, drifting away in swirling sparks. Zhu Zhuangling knelt in that mirage, turned to ash. After an endless silence, he spoke in soft, mocking tones. Best are those years you come of age, seeing the world's flowers astride a fast horse. A beautiful verse. He'd often heard Lo Fenghua sing it when he was younger. All those flecks of spiritual energy had become the sounds of bygone time. In those flying motes of golden willow fluff, he saw the scene of his first meeting with his Shifu. Ooh. I said Shifu, it's Shifu, but anyway, I just want to check. Yeah, there's still a lot of pages left. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to stop it at the scene break. But yeah, we are on page 181. I hope you guys enjoyed it despite all the crying and the tech issues and the struggle with all the starts. I want to say hopefully the next stream is going to be a little bit more lighthearted, but that is a stupid hope, so we're not even. But it would be nice if maybe the emotions are related to people that I don't care about, aka Xu Shuanglin, you know? We'll see. I feel like Meat Bun could make me care about anyone, just so that I can hate her more for it later. It's an interesting thing because, again, we know that there is an accomplice who we don't know who it is, what their motive is. So it's not like there isn't another big bad to worry about if Xu Shuanglin's storyline comes to an end now. But at the same time, it is kind of scaring me to think that this big bad of the series is potentially seeing his end within novel 7 of 11, you know? 4 more volumes potentially of a new threat that we have to worry about. It's kind of terrifying. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next Wednesday for the next read along. 再见。